Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. And again, above all else, that you are looking after yourselves and one another because that's what's most important. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 6 of Triple Play. Now, uh, my illustrious panel and myself have each picked, I can see that, can love that description. We've each picked a band that have had at one point in their career a run of three great albums. Again, not perfect because we already covered that subject matter in August, a run of three great albums. And we hope you are enjoying these episodes that we're bringing to you. And again, with it being after Christmas, please, if you're still partying or enjoying yourself, have a good time, not too much of a good time, but please be careful. And yeah, just enjoy what you're doing and having a good time. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have each again picked a one of three albums from a particular artist, and we are about to bring you episode 6. So, as I look on my screen here, we are going to go with Jim for his pick for day 6.
Hi, day six. If my math is right, we're starting this series on December 26th, right?
Yes.
This is our New Year's Eve episode.
Yes.
I
Happy
don't
New
know
Year's,
why I say
everyone.
that. Well, sure. Happy New Year's. Don't
Right.
drink and drive, kids. All that stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Day six for me is The Police. And I am going with what may be a controversial set. I'm going with Regatta de Blanc, Zenyatta Mandata, and Ghost in the Machine. Uh, we'll get to Ken's disgruntlement in a few moments, kids. So Regatta de Blanc, to me, it's their best album overall. I think it's got that urgency that Outlandos de Amor had, but yet the songwriting and the performances are just more finely honed in, and it's where like the Police fully emerged. Um, there were a lot of good songs on Outlandos, but there's a lot of great songs on Regatta de Blanc. I mean, just with I would submit to the panel that Message in a Bottle may be one of the greatest pop songs ever written. And certainly the performances on there from Stuart Copeland and Andy Summers are just fantastic.
Duly noted.
Um, Duly noted. Okay, thank you. Um, my second pick here is Zenyatta Mandata. Um, I think a lot of folks throw shade on this record because of some of the stuff on side two, like Behind My Camel and The Other Way of Stopping, Shadows in the Rain. Um, I don't mind those songs. I think they all are okay. They all have their place, and it kind of helps make the album um, have some variety, have some lift to it. And again, you've got, Don't Stand So Close to Me, darn near another perfect pop song. Um, the double banger of Driven to Tears and When the World is Running Down. Um, a really, really solid record. I mean, this was the first Police record that I bought, and just really played the grooves off this sucker. I just enjoyed all of it. Um, Third one, Ghost in the Machine, big left turn here with the synths and keyboards and the horn section. But again, I think it's a fantastic sounding record. It's really big and bright. Um, More fantastic songs with every little thing she does is magic. Um, I love Rehumanize Yourself, Stewart's contribution to the record. The whole album just has an outstanding brightness and feel to a kind of a buoyancy that carries, all the way through. Obviously, towards the end of the album, things kind of calm down a little bit with uh, Secret Journey and Darkness, but all in all, I think these are three outstanding albums. Uh, I almost went with Zenyatta Mandata, Ghost in the Machine, and Synchronicity, but for me, Regatta is such a strong record. I had to have that in as part of the Police trifecta. Um, there we go. That was the audible I called. I changed up another one just because I wanted some more variety, and so that's why you have the Police.
Okay. All right. Good choices. Okay. Now over to Ken.
Okay. I'm stepping in the time machine back to 1977. This is the second of three artists of my choice that starts at the very beginning of their career. Um, the Buddy Holly on speed, that is Elvis Costello. My Aim is True, this year's model, and Armed Forces. Holy cow. An artist that is still going strong today. To me, um, one of the absolute best songwriters of his generation. Uh, Starts off, you know, with these albums, very new wave, post punk, and a lot. The first album, My Aim Is True, gets a little bit of flack because this was before he formed his ongoing band, The Attractions. On this album, he was backed by Clover, which were a collection of musicians, many of them just studio musicians, several of them from which would go on to become Huey Lewis and the News, which a little bit mind blowing to me, you know. But they do a really decent job keeping up with Costello. Um, it was released overseas before it was released here in the US. And until it was released here, at the time, it was the biggest selling import album in US history. It was
Hmm.
just on fire. Um, Great songs, Miracle Man, Allison, Less Than Zero, Mystery Dance, Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes. It's just, it's like coming out of the gate strong almost with the greatest hits album.
Yeah.
Follows up just the next year with this year's models. You know, uh, he had put together the band The Attractions, which is just an iconic band. To me, The Attractions is the new wave version of the E Street Band for Bruce Springsteen.
I
They're
can see
just
that.
perfect. No actions, pump it up, this year's girl. And Elvis Costello has never been one to, you know, uh, there's not a lot of love songs during this time. I mean, he's covering politics and controversial members in a way that you wouldn't pick up on unless you were really paying attention. So a lot of social comment on songs that you just can't keep your toes still by listening to it. This year's girl, radio, especially pump it up. And then the following year, he follows that up with Armed Forces. It's just like, three out of the gate right off. Um, on this album, it's not quite as frenetic. It's a little bit more of a commercial sound. His songwriting continues to grow and be a little bit more sophisticated. Um, with great songs, Accidents Will Happen, Oliver's Army, and Party Girl, which is, of course, popularly covered by um, Linda Ronstadt at the time, the same way she covered Allison off the first album,
Yep.
um, in which that brought a lot of people's attention to Elvis Costello, who normally wouldn't have listened to that genre. I could have picked three consecutive albums from so many different periods of his career, but this is the one that started it for me. And these albums have been reissued several times. Um, if you can find, if you want to get them, try to find the ones on the Rhino label, because on that release, there was a lot of extra tracks. They
Yeah.
just didn't leave it the way it originally was. They pumped that full of a lot of tracks.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, those are out of print, but they should be able to be found, in online in various sources.
Discogs.
But yeah,
Yep.
but yeah, Elvis Costello 77 through 79, My Aim is True, this year's model in Armed Forces. Just killer out of the gate.
Well, good choices. Good choices.
So a couple of questions on that, Ken. If I recall right, correct me if I'm wrong, the original LP release for My Aim is True did not have Watching the Detectives. That was a single, right? But it was added for the US release.
The US release, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that they had done similar things with the two subsequent records.
Yes, with this year's model, for the US release, they left off two songs and added Radio Radio. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't remember what the track was on off of Armed Forces right offhand. So
I know they had a different cover altogether.
yes, yeah, the it has that watercolor
That
painting for the
splatter.
US, and it has the charging elephants on the European version. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Good choice. What a good choice.
Armando, so I recall from a previous episode, you're kind of not quite up to speed on Elvis Costello, right?
I have one album that Ken recommended, Emporio Bedroom, which I'm want to do an album spotlight on, but no, I'm not up on Elvis Costello. Maybe we should talk about doing an episode.
And you have to do a young person's guide to Elvis Costello.
Yes, or in this person's case, not so young person's guide. Anyways, um I'm getting up there, no, fantastic, fantastic choices. All right, over to Bill for his pick for day 6.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, grandchildren are very active outside the door of this carefully controlled studio setting.
Go on as he
So
bumps the
please
camera.
forgive any sudden 1-year-old high-pitched squeals or anything like that.
It's okay. No Bob's in the other room. Go on.
Oh. All right, I'm going to go. I'm going to go with someone who has been compared to Ken's pick for his entire career since the beginning.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about Graham Parker. That's the other one. I'm talking about Joe Jackson.
Yes, you are.
But I'm not going to the beginning of Joe's career. I'm going to the other end of the spectrum here. To me, the beginning of Joe's career is the weakest of his career. I still love it. This is my all-time favorite musical artist, period. I'm a huge Joe fan, so I don't think he's ever made a bad album, but I do believe that those albums really are like sketches compared to what would come later.
Mhm.
They're great sketches. They're catchy, good stuff, smart writing. But, this guy had other things to do than to maintain a basic new wave pop type band. He had lots of horizons to explore, and he did so. The ones I'm picking are Night and Day 2 from 2000, Volume 4 from 2003, and Rain from 2008. This is Joe coming off his very experimental period in the 90s with albums like Night Music, Heaven and Hell, and Symphony 1. Night and Day 2 could almost be seen as like a gift to the record company saying like, look guys, I'll at least give you something that you might be able to have some commercial success with, at least in referencing the title, back to the original Night and Day, his most successful album.
Yeah.
From 1982. I think this one's even better than the original Night and Day, and I
would agree
with that album. So this very much like the original. It is songs about New York. New York City. It has, in Joe's grand tradition, has guest vocalist Suzanne Dayam and Marianne Faithful, and of course we've discussed Dale DeVere before, who may or may not be Joe Jackson in drag, still unverified one way or the other.
Mhm.
But Dale DeVere, whether it's Joe or not, does one of the most powerful songs on the album, Glamour and Pain, which is just, it's powerful stuff.
Bloody hell. Bloody hell.
Yeah. Uh, this album is full of some wonderful lyrics from Joe here, but the musicians he surrounds himself with are, as always, top of the line. I mean, he doesn't skimp on his collaborators ever. You also have Happy Land, which is another one of my favorites here, which is about the club that burned down in New York, and about someone who went back inside after the fire, after she lost her loved one in that fire. And it's a very touching song. But the way Joe sings it, as well as the music that backs it, it's very convincing to me. Joe's the furthest thing away from any sort of Latin individual. He's about as white as they come. But when he sings Bailame, it's I buy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a deliberate nod back to his most commercial album, his most successful album. The follow-up, Volume 4, you notice it's called Joe Jackson Band. This was a direct sequel to the first 3 albums. He reunited the band from those albums that I kind of somewhat disparagingly mentioned earlier. You have Graham Mabey on bass, who of course has been off and on without Joe throughout their entire careers. You have Dave Houghton on drums, and you have Gary Sanford on guitar. Of course, you got the original band here. That was a big deal for a lot of people. They did a tour and everything, but to me, this album is superior to all 3 of the original Joe Jackson Band albums. Joe is a more mature writer, both lyrically and musically, and these guys are frankly better players. They've had 20 years to work on their chops. So yeah, they kind of fit right back together. It's almost like they never left. But Joe being Joe, he didn't let this become a full-time thing. So Gary Sanford was out the door. 5 years later, he came back. Dave and Graham were still there because he had fun playing as a piano, bass, drums trio. Which, for those who know Joe, he changes up the sound a bit on every album. Sometimes he changes it up a lot.
Yeah.
But this was a more casual change with just losing Gary. But this is a more, I don't know, it's a little classier, I guess. That's not necessarily the word I want, classier than Volume 4. That was meant to, evoke that more rocky band of yore. This is more jazz. It's more, in a lot of ways, music you might hear in a club rather than a stadium. And it's some of the best stuff he's ever written here. He talks in the opening song, Invisible Man. Essentially, he goes back to his own successful period, and he acknowledges that he's no longer that commercially successful guy that he used to be in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And he embraces it. And he talks about the next upcoming thing and how he's watching. Yeah, he's still here, though. He's very self-aware. There's also a little bit of a live concert on here, but it's only 3 songs from the album. I wish it had been extended more. They do Invisible Man, Wasted Time, and Good Bad Boy, and it's nice. But yeah, I'd love to have a whole video of this entire tour. I think this guy needs many more actual videos, DVDs, Blu-rays, whatever, of his various concert tours. There have been too many that were not recorded and released, and he shakes things up so much each time out.
Yeah.
He's an ideal artist to have many concert videos, as opposed to another favorite of mine, Rush, who probably put out maybe a few too many. in their latter career, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So for those of you who only want to go back to the old days, that's fine. But for me, I'm in it with Joe for the long haul. I've been there for over 40 years. Saw him on concert and the concert tour this year, and
Yeah.
we did. Stacy and I were on the show doing a review for that tour and for the album. And as always, he's outside the box. But
Yeah.
if you want to explore without getting too wild, like the 90s stuff, which I love dearly, this is the place to go probably for Latter Day Joe, just to give you an idea what he's doing, because he does reach back in the past and say, hey, come along, here's some familiar stuff, but here's new stuff too.
Mhm.
So it's a good window to rejoin the party with Joe.
Good choice. Good choice.
Got a quick question related
Yeah.
to Joe. Around that time, I know that he did a live trio album. It was called Live in New York.
Yes.
It's got like versions of Steely Dan's King of the World on there and, other things. Where does that fall in? Is that part of that 3 album run? Does that get inserted in there somewhere?
That is immediately prior to the first one. That
Oh,
was
so it's prior
99.
to Night and Day. Okay.
Yeah, that is a great album. He has, you can see by the covers on there, many of his influences.
Yep.
Okay.
Good record.
Nice version of King of the World on there.
Yep.
Good choice. I love Night and Day too. I love that album. I think it should got more notice when it was released, more
Yeah.
push. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, my pick for today is we're going with the Canadian contingent, the Tea Party. With their first 3 albums, Splendor Solace from 93, The Edges of Twilight from 95, and Transmission from 1997. Now, the Tea Party are a band that get slagged quite a bit in the US. They didn't make it in the US. They didn't break through. They get slagged quite a bit for sounding like the Doors and Led Zeppelin. Well, those are their influences, but they are a fantastic band. Musically, they are very accomplished musicians, multi-instrumentalists. In the band, quickly, you have Jeff Martin on lead vocals, guitars, various instruments, Stuart Chatwood on keyboards, mellotron, bass, percussion, various instruments, and Jeff Burrows on drums, percussion, and various instruments. Now, their lead-off album for EMI Canada and Chrysalis Records in the US and the UK, Splendor Solace, containing the 3 singles, The River, Save Me, and Certain Slant of Light. Just quickly, Bill and I did a new music discovery segment on the Tea Party, and I do believe that you did say, Bill, that you prefer Jeff Martin's vocals over Jim Morrison's vocals.
Yes, and I stand by that. Yeah, as my granddaughter tries to sound like
Exactly.
or like Robert Plant in the background.
Exactly. For me, the Tea Party came along at a time where Canadian music at the time was very stagnant and wasn't going anywhere. And when I first saw the video for The River on Much Music and heard the heavy drumming of Jeff Burrows, the fantastic guitar playing of Jeff Martin, I just like, what is this? And footnote, I was listening to the Led Zeppelin box set while I was watching the video on mute on TV. So yeah. I just think that the band for this album, they gave it all they had. And then there are 11 tracks on this album. The 3 main singles from this album are just fantastic. The drumming is big and bold and just dynamic. The guitar playing is just over the top. There's also an instrumental track here called Winter Solstice, which is just a beautiful palette cleanser for what came previous and what's about to come on the album. Following that up, released March 28th, 1995, The Edges of Twilight. Produced in LA along with Ed Stasian as co-producer. Ed Stasian, who at that point worked with such bands as one in particular, Living Color. Fantastic album, Edges of Twilight. Blues rock galore, along with Middle Eastern influences and instrumentation. Singles from the album were Fire in the Head, which is their Zeppelin, coming out full force. And it's got to be said, they were fans of Zeppelin. They are fans of Zeppelin, and they did tour with Led Zeppelin in 2000. I believe it was around 2000 or 2000. No, sorry, 1999, around that point.
You mean
And
Page and Plant?
sorry, Page and Plant, my error. And they were able to accomplish what very few bands of this day and age were able to do. They got the blessing of Robert Plant. Because during their opening set, the story is there was Jimmy Page on one side of the stage and Robert Plant on the other side of the stage, sipping his tea, watching them play. And all that Stuart Chatwood saw Plant do was just acknowledging what they're doing and giving them his full blessing. The Edges of Twilight would be considered the most successful album in the US. The one track on the album, Sister Awake, which features multiple sections, has literally, I believe, 52 instruments on that one track. In order to mix this track, they had to synchronize 3 recording machines in order to be able to house all the instrumentation on this one track. Amazing. The album on side 2 is pretty much blues rock galore, okay? With one track that stands out for me is called Inanna, which again focuses more on the Middle Eastern instrumentation. But when the drums kick in on the final part of the track on the coda, it's brutal. It is bloody brutal, and it's amazing. The final track on the album, Walk With Me, contains it clocks in at 14 minutes and 20 seconds, but there's like a 3-minute or 4-minute gap of silence where another track comes in at the end featuring, and if you hear Nala barking, I apologize. It features a spoken word piece done by Roy Harper, and Jeff Martin will go on to do some production work on Roy Harper's album, The Green Man, in around 2002. And 1997, you saw them sign with Atlantic Records in the US out of New York for the release of Transmission, released August 19th, 1997. This, by far, is my favorite album from the band. I bought this album when I moved on my own for the first time, and I drove my neighbors fucking crazy listening to this album night and day. And I blasted it through the speakers like you would not believe. Thin walls, they hated it. This album, 11 tracks in total, very dark themes on this album, almost apocalyptic, dealing with themes of dependency and aside the lead-off track Temptation, which is the lead-off single, deals with various themes of temptation in various ways. But it is just brutal in its attack and its presentation. Heavy, with elements of industrial instrumentation coming in, but not overly so. Standout tracks on this album on Transmission for me are Temptation, the lead-off single, Army Ants, Psychopomp, Gyroscope, the entire album, Alarum, Release, which was written in response to a news story that Jeff Martin saw on CNN about the treatment of women in various countries and basically the abuse that women have to go through in these various countries. And the track Release, which was released as a single, all the proceeds from the single went towards the White Ribbon Campaign, which was a Canadian organization that raises money for if I get this, hope I get this right, Men Against Violence Against Women. And pretty much what he's saying in the track is, I'm no good for you. I'm not what you think I am. You need to be away from me. You need to be released from me and move on and find someone else that will give you the life and the love that you deserve, because I'm not that one for you. If you stay with me, I'll hurt you even more, which is quite poignant. The album overall is a fantastic exercise in rock, slightly industrial and Middle Eastern influences, experimentation all the way. But you know what? It works on every level. Okay. And if you want to get these albums, you'll get them for a cheap price. Unfortunately, they're going for like $4 each, or even 99 cents on Discogs, which to me is a travesty, because this band needs to be talked about more. And a little footnote, they are coming out with a new album in 2025. They are recording right now in Australia, so I will be right there ready to pick it up. So that's my pick for day 6. And please check out the albums of the Tea Party. They are simply fantastic. Okay, so that's my choice for day 6. Comments? No comments?
I still need to listen more to the Tea Party. I mean, I've listened to a couple of the records, and I definitely picked up on the Doors influence and the Zeppelin influence. And you had talked, I think, a little bit about how they're compared to the Cult sometimes.
Usually it's the Doors and Zeppelin.
Right,
I
right.
mean, and
Um,
yeah, sorry.
no, I was going to say I've definitely everything that you're saying about them here is consistent with what I've heard you say before, and I know that I could stand a little more digging in to check it out.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this band is they pretty much do all the instrumentation themselves. I
Hmm.
mean, if they want to learn and if they want to add a certain flavor or texture to the music that they're doing, they just learn to play the instrument themselves. They don't want to bring in um, outside musicians. I mean, they will if they have to. They've done before, but
Hmm.
for them, the fact that they're willing to learn the instruments themselves and play it, also to them brings in a certain innocence to the playing. Um, that they, with the message they want to convey. And
Sure.
I just think that they need to be touted more. And I mean, when little brief note, we did the New Music Discovery episode on the Splendor Solace album. It got over 200 views. And this band really doesn't get that many views when you talk about them, right? So I was completely floored when I saw that. And another little footnote, a little postscript. Bill and I are going to be continuing the New Music Discovery episodes very soon, aren't we, Bill? When we can, when we have time. Anyways, any more comments or okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have day 6 of Triple Play. And please put in the comments below your picks for day 6 of bands that you feel have a run of 3 albums that are, if not perfect, great albums. And with it being, again, New Year's Eve, as Jim pointed out at the beginning of the show, we want to wish all of you a happy New Year's Eve. And if you're out tonight, and I know most of you are, please look after yourselves, have fun, not too good of a time, and get home safely. Okay. And we want to wish you all the best for the new year. And I personally want to thank everybody for supporting the channel over this long run so far that I've had with the channel. It's been fun, and doing episodes with my cohorts here, it's been great. I wouldn't trade this for the world. I really
Same
wouldn't.
here.
And again, Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2025. Okay? Have a good day. Bye for now.